Hi everyone, my name is Meg and I am your Vice President Welfare and Community, and welcome to our first ever Interfaith Week being run by our wonderful religious and beliefs rep, James.
Thanks. So today we're just running a Q&A with faith representatives, where faith leaders will be answering your questions to give you insight into their religions. We reached out to all major religions in Bath and Bristol area and delighted to have 6 representatives here with us today. So we have Rabbi Monique Meyer from the Bristol and West Progressive Jewish Congregation. We have Jane, who's unfortunately just left the call, but she will be back in a moment, who is with the Bath Baha'i community. We have Father Christopher Whitehead from Clifton Catholic Diocese. We have David, who chairs the Bath Interfaith Group. We have Joe Dolby from the Oasis Hub Bath. We have Dr. Paul Fuller from Bath Spa Religious Studies Department, and Rashad Azami, who's here to represent the Muslim community.
We posted on social media asking for question submissions from all of you, so we'll now go ahead and go through those questions. So we will ask each faith representative a question, and unless the question is aimed at a specific faith.
Wonderful. So the first question really is, how has COVID impacted the community aspect of your religions, and how do you think that people could help with this? How do you think that people could get more involved? So if we, again, I'll go down the list that I have. So if we start with, oh, sorry, 2 seconds, my list is not coming up. If we start with Christopher.
How has COVID impacted on the community aspect? I suppose that our faith, and I think part and parcel with being a Catholic, is being part of a community. And that's an important dimension to coming to the important dynamic of coming together Sunday by Sunday, day by day, really, to gather for a time of prayer, and just to remind ourselves, faith is not just about me and God, it's about me and the community around me. And so I think one of the sadnesses is for a lot of people coming to church is not just a prayerful thing, but it's an opportunity for them to interact and engage with other people as well. People who share their similar way of looking at the world, the similar beliefs, similar way of looking at life. And I think that's the sadness, is that the fact that this interaction with others has been taken away. And for a faith that draws people together, actually now we're being encouraged to stay apart. One of the beauties to come out of the lockdown is to investigate and to encounter a more sort of technological experience, and that's been a learning curve for me, so that people can encounter a faith online and a lived experience of faith online. It's not the same, but it connects people. And I think that's what faith and religion seek to do, is to connect people. And even though we're digitally connected at the moment, it's great to see a growing community. We've a church that has, on average at the weekend, about 650, 700 people crossing the threshold in normal times. Whereas now we're a community beyond, sort of physical boundaries, and drawing in people from all across our world, who are just tuning in for whatever reason, because as a family they're all tuned in, or as friends they're all tuned in. That's an upshot. I think the sadness is people keeping away, and that sense of fear. Whereas at the heart of my Christian faith is that message: do not be afraid. And that sense of gathering together in prayer and in solidarity of life. I suppose also one of the strengths is in fact, even though we can't gather formally, we're now this time different from the last lockdown, able to at least open the church, so people do come in during the day, during those limited opening times. They do come in, and there is a stillness and there is a peace to be found. And I think in the midst of uncertainty, that's what many are looking for, is a sense of just something to support them, something to encourage them, something to lift them, and something just to give them a bit of stillness at a time of isolation, loneliness, and fear. There's also, and this is where I finish, sorry, there's also, I think, a greater sense of building community locally. And I think putting faith and putting the gospel into practice in their concern for the people around them. And I've noticed that, with people, it's not just a Catholic thing, it's not just a Christian thing. I think it's been a Bath thing, a real sense of building up community, the neighbour we know and the neighbour we do not know. And that's changed. Hopefully that's something that will last for some time, is that we are growing in our awareness of the people around us and their needs, whether that's their physical needs, whether that's their emotional needs, their mental needs, their spiritual needs, that we are aware now of people around us. It's drawing us out of an inner isolation, that we do need others. And that's been a good thing, the care and the support of those around us and the building of community locally. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, lovely. It's answered it perfectly. Thank you. So we'll move on to David now.
I suppose I should give responses at two levels. As Bath Interfaith Group, it has been quite an interesting process of certainly learning new ways of being together, and discovering, for instance, that video conferencing for committee work is quite a good method, which is something we'll probably continue. There are advantages to not having to come out on cold winter nights, for instance. So I think for business matters such as committee meetings, we are learning, we're getting some benefits. But beyond that, I think I would echo everything that Father Christopher has said in terms of the wider community, and that loss of meeting together. My own community is the Methodist Church. We are perhaps less dependent on the church buildings than some of the other denominations, but not being able to physically meet together, not being able to share Holy Communion together, which is a very important part of our tradition, is a real loss. And sadly, there's an overlap between the groups, between people who are generally find it difficult to connect to the electronic connections, are often the similar people who are restricted to going out and meeting even when our churches are open for services. So there is a group of people who have been excluded by the nature of the lockdown, and even when we have not been in total lockdown. And we've had to take particular care to make sure that there are connections being made. The Methodist Church has a tradition of pastoral visitors, so every member of the church has a designated person responsible for their pastoral care, and those people have really taken over the great bulk of responsibility for keeping people connected. So even if it's just been pushing newsletters through people's door, certainly using the telephone, but making sure that people are not excluded from the fact that they're not able physically to take part in worship and the rest of the community. So that sense of loss and a greater responsibility on the church to reach out across those divisions that have been created.
Lovely, thank you. Go on to Joe now.
Yeah, I think like everybody, it's changed everything, hasn't it, about the way we do community and the way we do church. So from a Christian tradition, you know, Sundays are the day that we kind of meet all together in a church building, and that's, you know, literally sort of pretty much overnight was kind of put a stop to, and probably the first time that that's ever happened, you know, in certainly my generation and probably the one before that. So it's changed everything, I think, would be the simple answer to that question. So yeah, like others, I feel like there's been positives and negatives to that. So you know, church in your PJs with a bacon sandwich, you know, is something something wonderful, which I've not experienced before. But jokes aside, there's a kind of inclusion and an accessibility, you know, issue around that not issue, but it's kind of made church more accessible and more inclusive to people who perhaps can't access our building or wouldn't for a range of different reasons, and it's probably accelerated some of the things that we should have been doing anyway. So putting more content online, enabling people to join. At the moment, we're doing something called a hybrid service. So you can come to the building, not right now because we're in the middle of a second lockdown as we record this, but before that, and once we're again out of that lockdown, people can sign up in advance and come to the church service, and we're limited in numbers, but they can also access that same service online. And I think that's something that we'll continue to do, resources allowing, because it enables people who perhaps can't, and not just because of health issues, but I think lots of people now work on Sundays. You know, there are various reasons why joining in a community that always meets at the same place at the same time is tricky, and also in the same way. So that's been really good. I think it's pushed us into doing some of the things that perhaps we should have done anyway. And like others, I think, you know, there are sort of things about online services and platforms which I just feel aren't the same. You know, I miss singing with people. That's such a sort of key aspect of what we do when we gather together as a Christian community, and there's real kind of power and solidarity in that. You know, and so I think that's just not the same, and so there are things that we kind of miss. I think it's just about creativity, and you know, throughout generations, Christians and people of all faiths have had to be creative with the way that they join together as a community, and so COVID has made us have to think again, and in a way that's really good, because it shakes you out of these kind of routines and habits, and sometimes we do things just because that's the way people have always done it, or we just, you know, we don't see the need to change it. But this has kind of made us be a bit more creative. So for example, one man in our church, he really sadly, his wife passed away through complications from COVID, and it was this, you know, obviously a massive tragedy in the church anyway, but the fact that we couldn't gather around this person and you know, give this amazing lady the send off that she deserved, that we couldn't be with him in his grief and distress, it was awful. But then we just had to think how to do that in a different way, and I feel like the responses were so much more moving because people had to go to these additional lengths. So when it was the day of her funeral, they found out the route that her husband would be driving, and the church, like probably 30 people from the church, lined the route to wave at him as he drove past. And somebody else organised this digital booklet full of pictures and memories and comments that people wanted to make, and it was just so beautiful and moving and profound. And so I think there's just something about this kind of other layer of creativity where you have to work a bit harder to be community, and it stops you from taking it for granted. So yeah, huge kind of highs and lows, pros and cons, I think.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, Joe. Next, moving on to Monique.
So yeah, it was really interesting. We went into closing our building, but not our virtual doors back in March. We hadn't done anything online other than sometimes a class or a lecture or something. So there was a huge learning curve for us. And also early on, we lost a couple people in our community who were really core members of the community, and the timing was really difficult for us. And combining that with the fact that my community is very huggy. So, you know, when we see each other on the Sabbath for services, it's one of the things everybody does. They hug each other, and if they've lost someone, they console each other and they celebrate. So not being able to have those in-person physical connections with each other from the get-go really has been really challenging. You know, because community really is at the heart of what we're about. And, you know, whether we're sad or we're joyful. So we're proud, and we're really relieved and glad that we've been able to keep our doors open, our virtual doors open since March. Part of the reason we have not reopened at all, not even in terms of a hybrid, is just the nature of our building. Well, it really won't allow it. It's not suitable for, you know, we talk about maybe the maximum 4 or 5 people in there if we were going to open our doors, and it just doesn't make sense for us. So on the upside, there have been a lot of upsides, is that just as a couple people have mentioned, people who we normally couldn't reach because they had difficulty getting into the building are now going online and joining us. So that's been really lovely. And the excitement that I saw on their faces when they connected and saw everybody in the Zoom room, you know, they were, oh, hello. And suddenly they felt like, even if they couldn't be in the same place, there was a connection. When we did have funerals and we had prayers which happened in the evening after a funeral, the fact that we could connect people from all over the world for those prayers, family members who normally would not be able to be present for those services were able to come into the Zoom room and see each other and share memories. And it was very moving and very powerful to be present for that and to facilitate that. And also in a number of situations, family members didn't have any insight necessarily into the person who they lost, their involvement with the community. And so just hearing how much that person meant to us as a community meant a lot to them. Yeah, we've missed singing too. I'm just echoing a lot of what's been said already. Singing is at the heart of our worship service, and being able to be joyful in that way. We've managed to have somebody within our community who can pull together a number of tracks. So some of our music, we've been able to, it sounds a bit, because we don't sound like a perfect choir in my community, and we don't intend to. So when you hear these recordings, it sounds like we're actually singing live, which is really nice. And I think it's just going forward from here, continuing to support people. We have a Keep in Touch committee that has been phoning people regularly, taking some of the responsibility of pastoral care. The other thing that I didn't mention is that since we started all this in March, I've been daily streaming every morning worship services off of Facebook, and have been bringing in people that just sort of stumbled on it and trying to find a way to give regular support in these really challenging times. And I've admitted to the people in that room, the Facebook room, if you will, you know, I started off just on a whim to see what would happen. And we have a lot of regulars now. And I think we never offered something on a daily basis before, but we're going to continue that because it provides a touch point and a way of getting up in the morning and sort of organizing the day that is from a place of calm and reflectiveness and some joy as well. And yeah, so all these things have been good in spite of everything that's going on. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Thank you. Paul, next. I know you're not part of the Buddhist faith, but you know, how do you think that, or do you know how much the COVID-19 epidemic has affected Buddhists and that kind of community?
Yeah, so as James has said, I'm not a member of a Buddhist community, but I've been teaching Buddhist studies for the last 20 years in an academic context. So I might approach this question in a slightly different way, make 3 or 4 different points from an academic perspective, but still maybe an insider opinion in some ways. So us academics have been following the Buddhist responses to COVID, and we've been chatting about it on Twitter, and there is research projects ongoing. So one of the major Buddhist rituals, as many of you may know, is making offerings of a morning to Buddhist monks who wander through a Buddhist community. So they are offering dana, giving food into a monk's bowl, and the monk is primarily as monks and sometimes nuns in different cultural contexts, is a field of merit. So in return for the offering, the dana, the giving, they're receiving merit which will improve their life, their good fortune in this life, and maybe future lifetimes. So there's a real problem with this ritual. This is the point I'm trying to get to, in that there needs to be quite close contact during this major ritual. And so the contact is taken away. So we have all sorts of images where the monks, and this would be, I'm talking about an Asian setting primarily, where the monks are wandering around and there cannot be that, what everyone else is calling a sense of community, but it's kind of ritual community, if you will. So this ritual activity is kind of blunted in many ways, or stunted, or removed from the daily habits of a Buddhist community. So that's one point I want to make. Just basic Buddhist rituals cannot take place. Another point I want to move on to is kind of 3 related points as briefly as I can, is that a lot of Buddhist practice is actually what would be termed apotropaic in nature. And apotropaic is not an everyday term, but it means protection. Buddhist rituals are not really about the intellectual gymnastics that Westerners are interested in to do with Buddhism and complex doctrinal ideas. Buddhism on the ground and around Buddhist Asia is actually about protecting the congregation, the followers of Buddhism. And so with COVID, this has taken a number of different avenues have taken place, and different rituals have been used. We've got lots of evidence of Buddhist monks, kind of wealthy Buddhist monks around Thailand and Myanmar or Burma, flying in jets, in planes over Buddhist countries with holy water, and chanting as they do so in order to remove the threat of COVID, because this is a kind of new type of ritual activity which has been used. Another related point in the discourse about COVID around Buddhist countries is that you'll find that where COVID has not become rampant, it's not been as serious as in some other countries, the Buddhists will claim that it is because it's a Buddhist country that Buddhism, the Buddha's teachings, are actually protecting those countries from the virus. And this is quite a familiar rhetoric used around Buddhist Asia. So this idea that Buddhist countries, Buddhist nations, or Buddhist communities are actually protected because they are followers of Buddhism. So that kind of point is often used. This is part of the debate about COVID. I was going to make one other point, to do with this. So this apotropaic nature. Yes, I think I kind of dwell on that point that in Buddhist communities, the major rituals are taken away. The sense of community, which everyone's been talking about, is taken away. But primarily in the discourse about COVID, is that Buddhism is actually protecting Buddhist communities. Because if you think around Southeast Asia, many of the Buddhist countries, COVID did not become as serious. So the Buddhist communities are saying it's because they're Buddhist countries that they are protected from the virus. So my take upon this is a bit different because I'm an academic and that's the way we look at things. And so I can't talk about communities in different senses, but like I say, Buddhist rituals are stunted and they're removed, the major rituals are removed because there needs to be close contact. Yeah, so that's the way I'd approach the question. I'll finish off there.
Lovely, that's great, thank you. We'll go on to Rashad.
Yes, hello. Yeah, like well expressed by everyone else. There's always a positive and negative outcomes of any situation. The two buzzwords among the Muslim community, which is mosque and community. So mosque is the place for the Muslims 5 times a day, and they have to perform the congregation. Also, Muslims like expressed by Rabbi Malik, saying that Jewish community is a lot huggy, and so are the Muslims. They hug a lot, they shake hands a lot. But the sad thing is that, like any other places of worship, mosque is closed. Community can't get together, and even funerals, even marriages, which is also, in a way, it is not only a family event within the Muslim community, it is also kind of community event as well. So for a marriage, maybe 500-600 people are invited. And if there is a funeral, there is probably 40, 50, 60 people maybe there. So it all has impacted adversely on the participation of the Muslim community as a community. And the most sad aspect of this is the mosque, where Muslims go and offer their congregation as an obligation 5 times a day. So that has been impacted, but also there is room, which is the positive side, that the Muslims are more like to do their congregation with their own family, which they probably hardly done in a normal time. So Muslims are spending more time with the family, with their kids, with the children, and when they never paid attention to the upbringing of their own children, are giving them personal care. Now they have more time to spend at home and give more time to their children. So this is some of the positive things has come out. Also, Muslim do visit each other's houses a lot, and they just give a ring and say we are coming, and without any preparation, sometimes we just have guests. It is more now that people are not visiting each other, but there's more communication aspect between the family on the phone, on the social media, and people are still in touch with each other, and life always find a way or another for this purpose. So yes, there's always a possible a positive outcome of any bad situation. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll go on to Jane now, hopefully.
I hope you can hear me, and I know I'm going to disappear in a couple of minutes, but yes, I think a lot of what would apply has already been said, except just to say that the Baha'i community is a very small community. We don't have a place of worship. We have regular meetings for devotional, for prayer, and for meeting together socially. And those happen in a pattern which isn't every Sunday, it's actually every 19 days, it's a different pattern. And so before COVID, we used to meet in each other's houses. So obviously that hasn't been possible since the lockdown. So we switched to meeting on Zoom, and that worked quite well actually, because we were able to help members of the community get up to speed on how to download Zoom and get used to it. There was just one person who didn't have Zoom, and that person is able to join in using a telephone. So it's worked pretty well. And then when the restrictions relaxed, we were able to actually have a meeting in somebody's garden with just, 6 people or whatever the rules were at the time. So we've had a couple of face-to-face meetings, but most of them have been on Zoom. And then the other benefit of Zoom, as I think one of your other participants mentioned, is we've had some Zoom meetings which have been shared with people across the country and even internationally. Baha'is all over, you could say, all over the world really, joining in. Some of them have had 100, 200 people. And that's been really great, because you see a lot of familiar faces on screen, people you haven't seen for a long time. Although it is very hard to make, there's no social time aspect to it. So I think where we've missed out on is the social aspect, because although we can have our devotional meetings and that kind of thing, or administrative meetings, it's really difficult to get the right atmosphere for a social chat and keep in touch with people like that. So, and I think that was possibly what other people were saying as well.
So yeah, thank you everyone for answering the question. It was wonderful to hear all of your different inputs. Nobody expected COVID, but we're here and we're having to deal with it. So it's just wonderful to hear how you're all managing to get on and keep connected. So yeah.
Great, thanks James, and thanks everyone for your very insightful answers. So we'll go on to question number 2, which is, if a student was interested in joining your place of worship, that is the right one, sorry. If a student was interested in joining your place of worship, how would they go about this? So we'll go to Rabbi Monique first.
So the first place they can start, if they just want to get a taste of what we do, is go to our public Facebook page. So Bristol and West Progressive Jewish Congregation, and all our services are live streamed there. So Sunday at 9:30 a.m., Monday through Friday at 8:30 a.m., and then Friday night at 8 p.m. and Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And actually there is a way to do it if, I think probably most of the students have access to Facebook, but there is also a way to do that if you don't have an account. If they wanted to look to formalize having a connection with us, they can get in touch. If they want to get in touch with me directly, and I can forward their request on, and they can reach me at rabbi@bwpjc.org. So, but we have a number of students who are members of our community. Our younger part of the community is growing, and we welcome students to connect with us.
Amazing, thank you. And shall we try Jane while we have you here? I'll just repeat the question quickly, which was how, if students wanted to get involved with your place of worship, how would they get involved?
Okay, so if a student was interested in joining our place of worship, we don't have a place of worship, but what we do have is a way of, we would certainly enable them to join in the various activities we've got going on if they were interested. And what they should do is email the secretary of the local assembly. So the thing is to make an approach, and somebody will get in touch with them and tell them when the next meeting is. And of course, if as soon as the restrictions lift, they can come and meet everybody in person.
Okay, we'll go to Christopher, if that's okay, Christopher.
I think if someone wants to come and see, then it is a case of just push the door and it's open. We've made use of every opportunity to keep the place open as much as we can within the restraints and the constraints of the guidelines. And I think the church must be as clean as an operating theatre at the moment. and always smells beautifully fresh. So it is a case of push the door. Our website gives, and our Facebook posts, they give very clear indications of the times of the opening of the church. Everything is live streamed, like so many other communities. That's a new skill of keeping people connected and reconnected. Mass is live streamed every day at 10 o'clock. And then the church is open every day, apart from Saturday, because the place needs to be deep cleaned, from 11 through to 1:30, and then from 5 through to 6:30. And because that's what's asked of us, it is simply for personal and private prayer. So the place is open, and there's always somebody in the church to welcome, whether they be first timers or whether they be sort of regular members of our parish community, whether they be just visiting Bath and interested in what's behind the door. There's always a welcome. And equally, I'm lucky enough that I live right next door, and the house is attached to the church. So if somebody wants to find out more, ring the doorbell. And even though I'll open it and take a step back just to keep, a sort of a social distance, there'll always be a welcome. But I think in the first instance, come and see, push the door, and you'll find a tremendously warm welcome, and a place that is warm and inviting, from whatever background, faith background, none, that people belong to. If people are interested, if students are interested, just simply come down into town, push the door, and find a little seat and make yourself at home.
Lovely, thank you so much, Christopher.
All the contact details, details are on our website. So just Google, I think that's what you do, Google St John's RC Bath, and you'll find every bit of information that you could possibly want of how to get in touch and what we're about. Be great to see people.
Fabulous. So I'll go to David next. I know you're the chair of the interfaith group, so don't worry if you don't have an answer to it, but if you do, please do go ahead.
Well, I'll start with my other hat this time. In terms of Methodist churches, they are, I'm afraid, closed at the moment. We're not able to keep them open generally, even for private prayer. But every church has a notice board outside with a telephone number. So the old-fashioned way, pick up the phone. But equally, if you Google Methodist Bath, you would get all the contacts you want. And whichever social medium you like to use, you would be very welcome. I might just say specifically from the angle of the interfaith group, everything is now happening online anyway, and the contact means there is the Facebook page. So if you put Bath Interfaith into the Facebook search, you would find our page. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had our 30th anniversary celebration, which we had hoped to be in one of the big churches in town, but had to be entirely on Zoom. Worked very well, and we had quite a few visitors who hadn't had contact with us before. And in fact, there's a recording of that available on our Facebook page. So Facebook as the means of contact. We have a sort of loose membership structure, but everybody is welcome to our meetings, and you don't have to use a password or anything. So everybody, as I say, would be warmly welcome.
Thank you very much. And I'll go to Rashad next.
Well, in most of the mosques, there is a welcome to all policy, but during this crisis of COVID-19, different mosques has taken different approach. For instance, Bath Mosque, which used to be open 7 days a week, during the lockdown, it is all closed. But just before the second lockdown, it used to be only open on a Friday. And then the mosque would invite people to register themselves online to come and visit, say for example, for Friday. So the Friday booking has to be done a week before. But these days, the mosque is closed the whole week. And the other mosque that I know, they're all closed. So it is probably the people visit locally and see if there is any mosque which is open or not. There is contact details all around on the on their website, and most of the mosques, they have their own website or Facebook pages. So there's a lot of different ways of communication. Muslims don't do their prayers online. They have to be in the congregation. Yes, some mosques, they do organize lectures or teaching circles, but even that is closed during this crisis. So it is the if anyone wants, and everyone is welcome, want to get in touch with any local mosque, obviously they have to go through online and register themselves and speak to the people responsible for that particular center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It must be very complicated for you all at the moment. And Joe, I guess Joe. Sorry, I'm doing a random order now.
Yeah, so super simple for us. I think I would always say just start off by going to our website, oasisbath.org. That's more of a kind of fixed site that doesn't change a huge amount, just because it's kind of there to tell you who we are and what we do, and the kind of like building blocks, I guess. And then I'd probably say the best thing to do is to follow us on whatever social media platform you're involved in. So probably Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. We're on those three and we update those regularly, and you can find the links to those right at the bottom of the homepage of the website. So we tend to sort of post what we're doing week to week on all of those social media channels. But there's weekly services called the Oasis Global Gathering that happen on a Sunday morning at 11 a.m. They're just 20-30 minute short services, and that's lots of Oasis churches joining together. We do that together kind of as one organisation. And then once a month we've got the Oasis Church Bath services. So yeah, anybody's welcome to come along to those. And if you look on our website, there's a page called Microhubs, and that's smaller groups that meet during the week. And normal times they would meet face to face, but at the moment they're just meeting online. But you can look at the details of those online and sign up to those groups as well.
Fab, thank you, Joe. And last but not least, Paul, if you know of any places where people can get involved within Bath at all?
Yeah, sure. Thanks ever so much. I'll answer that question, if you don't mind, in a slightly different way, to do with becoming a Buddhist, maybe getting involved in Buddhism. So there's lots of Buddhist centres, obviously. It's really easy. Leaping off what Christopher was saying, Christopher used the term come and see a number of times, which I found really interesting, because Buddhism is meant to be a come and see religion. It's not meant to be a religion that converts individuals, but the Buddha spoke about coming and seeing, ehi paseko, pasa, literally to come and see. So I found it interesting that Christopher was saying this. I kind of really inspired by what he was suggesting about this notion to do with converting to a different religious tradition. So in Buddhism, I'd like to approach this question in terms of what actually is a Buddhist and how would one become a Buddhist. And really, becoming a Buddhist is to take refuge, to go for refuge, to go to protection to the Buddha as an historical teacher, his teaching, the Dharma, his salvific teaching, if you like, his teaching which will lead you to the overcoming of suffering, and to go to the community, the Sangha. So to become a Buddhist is to actually take refuge in the Buddha. And so I think in Western modern cosmopolitan Buddhism, being a Buddhist is a lot different to what it is in Asian culture. In Asian culture, you're simply born into a Buddhist tradition, you follow the traditions, and it's often a very conservative religious outlook. In the West, it seems to me to be connected with a liberal attitude in terms of politics, society, culture. So there seems to be two very different things. In the East, it's very much to do with the community, part of the tradition. In our modern Western approach, take on Buddhism, it seems to me that it's very much to do with one meditating, for example, which one wouldn't dream of in Asian Buddhist context, meditation would not be part of the practice. So let's turn this on its head. To become a Buddhist, you may want to go for refuge and take on a Buddhist identity. You may want to meditate alone or in a community, but you've got to understand that this is kind of juxtaposed or quite different to what it would be to be a Buddhist in a Buddhist culture. I'm trying to turn around a number of different concepts. So to kind of sum up what I'm trying to suggest is that I guess at the heart of the Buddhist path and to become a Buddhist would be to practice ethical conduct, which in turn would calm one's state of mind. And with one's state of mind calmed, then one would see things in a slightly different manner, one would have the nature of reality. And with those insights, one's ethical actions may become more pronounced, maybe more profound. One's state of mind would become increasingly calmed, and one would generate more wisdom and insights into the nature of reality. So that's the way I want to answer this question, to become a Buddhist. And I better add that as I'm working for Bath University, you should also come and study at Bath University and take our courses, because we study the history, philosophy, psychology, sociology, and anthropology of Buddhism and various other religious traditions. So I'll finish off there.
Great, thank you very much, Paul, and thank you, everybody. I'll pass back on to James.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next question, and I realise reading this question, it might be a bit difficult for Paul to answer, but for the rest of you, it should be quite interesting, is do you usually get many students regularly attending your places of worship or attending online sessions if you're online? So we'll go for Christopher first.
That always startles me. In normal times, in whatever's normal, our Sunday evening mass at 6:30 is the student sort of frequented mass, and it's great to see. A tremendous international flavour, whether they're from students from the Far East, from China, from mainland China or Hong Kong, or from the Philippines. Whether we have students from Spain or from France or other parts of Europe, a lot of Polish students at the moment. It's great because that Sunday evening, the age range sort of drops tremendously. Not that we're sort of just simply a top-heavy community, but it seems the most natural gathering for students. We used to have mass on campus up at Bath University, and that has stopped over the last sort of 18 months. But it's good to have them here, and I think it's good for the community here to see, the present and the future of the church just all around them, but to give a wonderful sort of international, universal flavour to faith and to practice. Online, I'm not sure. I can't see who's the other side of the camera. I give a little wave every day in the hope that somebody is there. But I know that there are students who keep connected. But of course the world is a big place, and I realise in the Catholic world I'm not the only one that's live streaming. There is so much choice out there, and to be honest with you, I suppose I don't care where people go as long as they go somewhere. And I'm just one of so many choices that people have to make. My hope is that they do connect in, that there are students who connect in because they see someone familiar, they see something familiar to what they're normally used to. But I just hope that they're connected somehow. And there's so much. It's not just mass that's live streamed every day. There's a little bit of catechesis, a little bit of teaching that's live streamed as well regularly, as well as those the opportunity in the evening if people can't get into church. We live stream that evening time of prayer before the Blessed Sacrament, so that even in people's homes, even in the students' halls or in the places where they're living, they can at that moment just take a step back from whatever they're engaged in the busyness of the day or the ordinariness of the day, just to tap into a moment of stillness. They don't need to sort of to tune in, but it might be that they just want that little link with a community that they feel at this moment during their studies that they're a part of.
Wonderful, thank you. Go on to David next. So, you know, as far as the Methodists themselves or the Bath Interfaith, you know, do you have any students that are involved with that?
Yes, well, I can say a word on both counts, I think. I'm sorry to say that we don't seem to see many students at our regular services when they are being held. But we have Karen Turner, who you will probably know, who's the Free Church chaplain at both universities. She is doing a lot. I know she has groups of students. I think off and on, used to be on a Sunday evening, that sort of time that was always popular. And she is maintaining those kinds of connections with students who have shown interest, and is looking at ways of sort of creating not separate churches, but communities that will appeal to perhaps to younger people more than some of our traditional services do. It's a similar story in a sense for the interfaith group. We would love to have more students involved, and I'm really glad to have this opportunity to connect with Bath Spa University, because there are obviously students of many different faiths at both our universities, and we would love to connect more. We would love to be able to offer more. And I would certainly hope that any students who are watching this who have that sort of sense of inquiry, perhaps into other faiths, or interested in that journey, which I think we're all on, the journey of faith, which means listening to one another, means sort of drawing in, perhaps exploring different channels from the traditions we've grown up in. And as with so many organizations, we feel that we are too old, and we would love to have some younger blood, some of the energy and enthusiasm of younger people. So do get in touch, do follow us and be involved if you're at all interested.
Excellent, thank you. We'll go on to Joe.
Yes, we do have students. I think probably the best thing to direct people towards is there's a page on our website. If you look under the church life section, there's a students page, and that just describes a little bit about kind of what it's like to be a student. And we had a student who made like a bit of a kind of vlog saying sort of what she thinks about being part of Oasis and what it's like. And so we just say, don't believe what I say, because I'm the church leader, I'm biased. But yeah, go and listen to Sarah's vlog, because it's really good, and it just describes a bit about who we are and what it's like being a student as part of Oasis. So that's good. Excuse me. We do attract students, but I'd say that we part of our value as a church is that we have people of all ages, and so we don't really do loads specifically for students. Lots of churches might have kind of specific student groups or student ministries, and we actually feel quite strongly that we don't want to do that. We feel like there are lots of great things at the university that group people together as students, and we feel that maybe what students miss when they leave home is not kind of being around their peers all the time, because you get that at uni, but actually what's really important is that sense of family. So you miss your mum, your dad, that weird uncle that is a bit odd to talk to, but you learn a lot from. And that's church. We're a family, and we're a dysfunctional one, but we love each other, and it's good fun. And so we have a real kind of strong ethos that we invite students to integrate into the wider family of Oasis, because we are a family, and so we love students and we welcome them, but alongside kind of all people of different ages and stages. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, Monique.
So it's been interesting what's been happening over the last 8 months or so, because we would typically only get a few. Some of that was what we were seeing is that a lot of the students that were attending the universities in the area were from a more traditional background. So they weren't as interested in coming to us. But the demographic has shifted just in the last couple years, and we're starting to see more students coming. And I'm definitely seeing, like in the mornings when we live stream, a number of students starting there as their entry point, and then saying, well, how do I get more involved with the synagogue, or how can I get into the Zoom room for, Friday night or whatever. So I think it wasn't one of the things that I named earlier, but I think that has also been a positive, is that it's opened the doors. We're not so easily accessible for some students because we're not located in the center of Bristol, we're located in Easton. And even though there is a train that drops you about 10 minutes away, not everybody thinks that far. So we welcome any connections people want to make. We're also aware, as Joe was saying, there are societies in there's Jewish societies in universities that do take care of a lot of their sort of being with each other needs. And we have that opportunity for them to be immersed in a more cross-generational environment with younger people and older people. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely, thank you. So, Paul, next. Do you think you're able to answer this question? Do you think that you have an insight on any aspect of this?
Yeah, very briefly, perhaps, to respond to what David was interestingly saying. So, in terms of interfaith dialogue, this is an academic discipline within religious studies. I'm thinking about this in terms of students, obviously, at Bath Spa, which I'm going to promote, that we have this great tradition of studying religion at Bath Spa. And in terms of which students are actually religious, who take religious studies degrees, and the students need to be religiously motivated or part of a religious tradition in order to succeed in the study of religion. So there's questions abound to do with this kind of idea. But clearly, in terms of, again, to go back to this point to do with interfaith dialogue, I think there's a lot of we could offer students in terms of communicating. Obviously, this is part of what we're doing today. So this morning I was teaching a virtual lecture using interfaith dialogue. People like John Hick, who had very strong ideas about the idea that the fundamental notion that all religions are pointing to the same truth claim, and they are culturally conditioned responses to the transcendent. So it'd be really interesting, David, if I may pick out what you're saying, if we could get more students actually involved in this interfaith dialogue from the different universities around Bath and also the different religious communities, it can be a really fruitful area for students to encounter religious studies, maybe to move them on to a different area of the academic study of religion. So I can't respond. So obviously we have students studying religious studies at Bath Spa, but my question was how much students need to be religious. Are they religiously motivated? Is it better if they have no religious tradition in order to understand the religious traditions, a kind of insider outsider point of view? So I'll keep it relatively brief for this question.
No, lovely, thank you, Paul. So then finally we're going to Rashad.
Yes, the Bath Islamic Society was founded in 1978. That was mainly by the students who came to the Bath University. So they always played a very close role in any religious activities, in any social activities, social gatherings, and they have, even from that time until now, there's always a group of students who are part of the management committee at the Bath Islamic Society. Whether the Bath University or Bath Spa University, And I remember a meeting with the vice chancellor of the Bath and Bristol University as well, and that was in the light of finding a proper place for Muslim worship at the Bath and Bristol University. I don't know if that was materialized or not, but there has been, like the rabbi mentioned, there is a Muslim society as well at the Bath University, and I think there was one going to be at the Bath and Bristol University, and the students always played a role, active role at keeping the Muslim society religiously, spiritually, and socially very active, whether within the city of the Bath or whether it is at the universities or even the colleges and the schools. So even Muslim students who go to school, whether it is the secondary school or the A level, still they are part and parcel of the religious practices. So they do offer their prayers if they could at the schools as well. So Muslims comes from many backgrounds, but it is not only from the Middle East, from Malaysia. Actually, the Bath Islamic Society, when it was founded, most of the students were from the Far East, Malaysia, Indonesia, and other such places. But now it is more of the both foreign students and the local British Muslim students who are running the religious and the spiritual and even the social activities of the mosque and Islamic centers. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And we'll go on to Jane now.
So we don't have many students in the community, but actually the past couple of years we have had 3 attending the local university, the different universities actually. So we do have students attending, but it's kind of, well, there isn't a place of worship, so it's kind of a bit more fluid, if you like. They're very welcome to bring friends along, but in practice that may or may not happen.
That's lovely, thank you so much. So yeah, thank you for answering that. I'll pass on to Megan then.
Thanks, James. So one final question, it's a nice short one. Can you tell us one short sentence of wisdom for our students? So anything to do with lockdown or or just life in general and being an adult. Yeah, I'll give you all a second. I feel bad picking on the first person now. Joe, would you like to go first? Sorry.
I knew you were going to pick me because I was like, oh, that's okay, because I'll have a couple of minutes to think that one through. And as soon as I said it, I knew. I suppose in terms of wisdom for right now, I think something that's really stuck with me is this sense of kind of one day at a time. I'm a planner, and so I think it's been really hard, particularly when it comes to church life and leadership, because we like to plan ahead, and Christmas service meetings are in September, and getting everything kind of ready, and we're just not able to really do that. And I think I've really struggled with that. And yeah, I think it, and linking it into my faith as well, it's it's very much in terms of kind of living in the present and being aware of where God is in this moment and what is around you right now, I think has been a really helpful thing for me, just to kind of be fully present in this day, in this moment, knowing that tomorrow might look different. It might go as I planned. It might be nothing like what I expected, but just to kind of, take a deep breath and be present in this moment. And I think, Jesus talked about kind of not letting tomorrow worry about itself, this idea of kind of being in this moment. And yeah, I think for me that's been a really helpful thing, just one day at a time, one moment at a time, certainly for lockdown anyway.
That's wonderful, thank you, Jenny. And Rashad?
Well, I just remember one of the saying of the Prophet Muhammad, who said, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi." This in Arabic means everyone is responsible and towards himself, and everyone is responsible towards people who he is living among them. So, in the situation of right now under the COVID-19, we need to take care of ourselves and take care of our family, but also our friends and people who are around us. And this is the most important thing that can save us a lot of troubles in this crisis. So yes, it is the responsibility towards each other.
Lovely, thank you so much. I'll go to Monique.
So the thought that came to mind for me is that in whatever circumstances we find ourselves in, to strive to be a mensch. And a mensch is a decent, kind, just, truthful, compassionate human being. Someone who, no matter what the forces are around, that we follow our moral compass and do what is right and compassionate. And that is challenging each and every day. And we have so many moments during the day where we can take the opportunity to practice that we have choice each and every time we encounter another human being, and to recognize the divine in that other person and say and act in a way that not only gives honor to them, but honors ourselves.
Thank you so much. This is very inspiring. Thank you. I'll go to Paul.
Yeah, thanks very much. The thought that occurred to me that Buddhists have this type of meditation. It's called metta meditation. Metta is translated as loving kindness, and loving kindness is defined as the feeling of compassion that a mother has for her only child. And in this form of meditation, one tries to generate that feeling towards people one is kind towards, one's close family, people who one is neutral towards, then people who one has negative feelings towards. So one tries to generate loving kindness towards all sentient beings. So I think that would be a good message from Buddhism.
Lovely, thank you. I'll go to David.
Before I get onto my own, I would love to just pick up what Paul has said. And just this morning on the radio, one of Jonathan Sacks' former previous thoughts for the day was rebroadcast. And when he was talking about chesed, the Hebrew concept, which didn't have an English word until Tyndale, translating the Bible into English, coined the word loving kindness. So that, yeah, I mean, that's absolutely central. But completely different point I was going to make. One of the people I most admire in faith is Richard Holloway, who at one time was bishop, the Anglican Bishop of Edinburgh. And he posed the question, what is the opposite of faith? I could pose it to any of you. Many people would say the opposite of faith is doubt. What he said, and I absolutely agree with him, the opposite of faith is certainty. Because once you have certainty, absolute certainty about something, there's no room for faith. Faith is about a journey through life. Faith is about asking questions. St. Anselm, who was Archbishop of Canterbury 1,000 years ago, talked about faith seeking understanding. So my message above all to students is keep asking the questions, keep seeking the understanding.
Lovely, thank you so much.
So I wanted to share with you something which is from the Baha'i writings. It's from something which was revealed by the founder of the Baha'i faith, and in a book called The Hidden Words, and it was revealed about 170 years ago, so a long time ago, and has been translated into English from the Persian. And this is God talking. So it says, "O Son of Man, I loved thy creation, hence I created thee. Wherefore do thou love me, that I may name thy name and fill thy soul with the spirit of life." So it's very much this idea which is found in all the religions, that God loves us, his creation, that mankind is special, and that he wants us to turn to him. Just to give you an idea that the spirit of the Baha'i faith is the same as in all the other religions.
Lovely, thank you so much. And I'll go to Father Christopher.
I would say all of the above, really, and that gets me off answering in some respects. But I think listening to each of those beautiful, articulate contributors, I want to draw on one little line which comes from one of the Psalms: "Be still and know that I am God." That in the midst of chaos, and in the midst of uncertainty, and in the midst of fears and loneliness and isolation, there's a real opportunity to come to know God and to seek him, and to seek a peace that only he can bring. And something that was said about, being fully present in the today. And I think there are opportunities that come certainly my way every day to know that God is not so far away. Even though I can spend, a particular day physically on my own, or just encountering a dozen, 2 dozen, half a dozen people that come into church, or if I encounter people in the town, if I go up to the shops, but quickly there and quickly back, I come to remind myself that actually I can't take things for granted, and I shouldn't take things for granted. And every day gives me an opportunity to be something of the presence of God for others. And it gives each of us the opportunity to be the presence of God for others, the comfort of God, the strength of God, the peace of God, the joy of God, the compassion of God, the kindness of God, the forgiveness, the healing of God, or just simply that reassurance that in times of doubt and uncertainty and fear, that God is not so far away, that he is near. And I think that's what's kind of getting me through each and every day, is to know that God is there, and all I need to do maybe, and I have the opportunity to do this in lockdown, is just simply to be still, to let my soul catch up with my body, and to let God hold me, and God keep me in his love and in his care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Pass back on to James.
Lovely. So that is all the questions that we have. So I would like to thank everybody for taking your time out of your day to come and spend a couple of hours at the spin with us just to answer the questions. It has been fantastic to hear from you all. Yep, so as you know, this is being recorded, so this recording will go up onto our Student Union page. But I would like to thank you all, especially for coming and offering your own insights. It has been wonderful, so thank you very much.